2 days before my coworker's promotion, I found a mistake in his code that could crash the whole system. I had a choice: say nothing, or risk looking like I was trying to take him down. I found out Derek was getting promoted 2 days before it became public. I was in the break room, pouring coffee, and overheard 2 managers talking near the window. One of them said, "It is a done deal. Derek gets the lead role next quarter. Good for him." The other said, "Yeah, he has earned it. Charismatic, works hard, clients love him." I just stood there, frozen, cup in hand. I did not know how to feel. Derek and I started in the same department within a year of each other. We were never close friends, but we worked well together. He is the kind of guy who is always smiling, always joking, always loud enough to be noticed in a room. I am not. I am quiet, steady. I fix the boring problems, document the edge cases, make sure nobody crashes the system. Nobody notices when I do it right. They only notice if it breaks. But I was not bitter, at least not yet. Derek had his flaws, sure, but he did his job. I assumed he would do the right thing if the pressure hit. I congratulated him that afternoon. He looked surprised but tried to play it cool, said he was not supposed to know yet. I smiled and said, "Your secret is safe." And it was. Until the next night. I stayed late at the office, working on a data migration that was more fragile than anyone had estimated. I was the only one on the floor when I realized I had left my backup notes in a meeting room. When I walked in to grab them, I saw Derek sitting at one of the side terminals. He had headphones on. He was working through a staging environment for one of our biggest accounts. I did not mean to watch, but something caught my eye. He was pushing live data into a test environment and labeling it final. The naming convention was wrong. The logic branch he used ignored one of the key validation flags. It was small, easy to miss, but it was wrong. And if that build went live, it would cascade. Incorrect pricing, broken permissions, vulnerabilities. I knew this system. I had built part of the test harness myself. If this reached the client as is, it would trigger a storm. My first instinct was to walk over and ask if he had noticed, but I did not. I stood there for another few seconds, then quietly backed out of the room and returned to my desk. I told myself maybe I was mistaken. Maybe he was testing something. Maybe he was going to catch it himself. But the next morning I checked the logs. It was not a test. He committed the build and pushed it to review. I froze. My chest went cold. I rechecked the logic. Triple-checked. Same problem, same risk. Nobody else seemed to notice. The project manager was out for the week. QA was running blind because Derek had skipped the proper documentation. Nobody questioned it because he was next in line for promotion. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Just a late-night slip. But the system did not care. And the client definitely would not. That afternoon I found out something else. I had been in the running for the same promotion. Quietly. Internally. My name was on the short list until last month. Then it was pulled. No reason given. I had only learned this because a junior dev, unaware of the politics, showed me the wrong slide deck from an internal presentation. There it was. My name. Crossed out. Replaced by Derek. Now the decision was more than technical. If I said something, it could be interpreted as sabotage. If I said nothing, and the build went live, the system would break and someone would pay for it, probably Derek. And when that happened, someone else would need to step up. Someone who already knew the system. Someone like me. I sat in my car that evening and stared at the dashboard until the lot went dark. This was not about ambition. This was about who I was. And no matter what I chose, there would be fallout. I did not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the numbers in the system shift like loose bricks. I imagined the moment the client ran the report, saw the wrong totals, the wrong dates, the wrong permissions. I imagined the email thread, the crisis call, the chain of blame. I imagined my name somewhere in it, not because I caused it, but because I saw it and said nothing. But then I imagined the other version, me walking into Ms. Calloway's office, telling her I noticed something strange in the staging environment. No names, just a flag. Then she pulls the log, sees the commit, calls in Derek. It does not take much for her to connect it all. He gets pulled from the promotion list. Maybe worse. And then, a week later, someone in upper management remembers my name from that old list. And I am back in. Back in because I said something. Because I told the truth. But also because I benefited from his fall. That is what I could not shake. It would never look clean. It would never feel clean. Even if I said all the right words for the right reasons, people would draw the same conclusion. That I threw him under the bus. That I got what I wanted by burning someone else. And maybe they would not be wrong. Maybe a small part of me wanted that. And that scared me. I showed up to work the next day with a stomach full of sand. Every sound was too loud. Every screen felt too bright. Derek walked in 15 minutes late with coffee and confidence. He smiled at the receptionist, spun his keys on his finger, and winked at someone near the design desk. He looked untouchable, and I hated that I noticed. Around lunch, I checked the deployment schedule. The client-facing build was set to go live by Friday. That gave me 2 days. 2 days to either intervene or disappear. 2 days to pick a side. I kept telling myself it was not personal, that this was about process, protocol, responsibility. But it was personal. Because I had been in that conference room, watching the same people who once said I was dependable now say I was replaceable. Because I had answered every 2 a.m. ticket, patched every undocumented bug, trained 3 different interns, and never once asked for recognition. And now the person who cut corners was about to be rewarded while I stood on the sidelines pretending not to exist. That evening, I went home and poured a drink. I sat on the floor of my living room with my laptop open, staring at the code diff. It was so simple. One change. One wrong line. A single Boolean flipped. And the downstream effects were massive. If I fixed it myself, silently, I would be covering for him. I would be participating. I would also be breaking procedure. If I said nothing and the build failed, I would be complicit by omission. I started typing an email. Then I deleted it. Then I wrote a message in our team chat. Something vague. Then deleted that too. I opened my notes from last year's ethics training. I remembered the slide that said, "When in doubt, escalate to protect the client." But I was not in doubt. I was drowning in clarity. That was the problem. I knew exactly what was at stake. I just did not know who I was in this story yet. Hero. Traitor. Bystander. That night I slept 2 hours. Maybe less. I woke up before the alarm, got to the office early, and just sat at my desk pretending to work. Derek breezed in with a joke about traffic. I smiled like I heard it. At 11:30, I opened a blank draft in the team chat and wrote one line. "Hey, just wanted to clarify something I noticed in the staging logic for the finance portal. Is this intentional?" That was it. No name, no blame, just a flashlight pointed at the dark. I hit send. My heart felt like it split in half. Within 10 minutes, Derek replied, let me check." Then silence. 20 minutes later, he messaged again. "Good catch. That flag should not be set that way. Fixing now." The thread ended. Nobody else commented, but I saw 2 pairs of eyes from other desks look up at me, just for a second. I did not look back. By the end of the day, the code was corrected. No announcement, no apology, just a clean commit with his name on it and a generic message. Minor bug fix. I went home feeling nothing. Not pride, not regret. Just quiet, like I had managed to steer the ship away from rocks without anyone noticing the storm. But that night, something strange happened. I got a message from Ms. Calloway. Just one line. "Thank you for speaking up the right way." And that is when I realized someone had been watching. The message from Ms. Calloway sat in my inbox all night. I kept rereading it like maybe it would grow or change. But it was just that one sentence. Short. Controlled. Deliberate. The next morning, I walked into the office and nothing looked different. No banners. No confrontations. Just the quiet hum of air conditioning and a few people already at their desks. Derek was not in yet. I checked the logs, the patch was holding. The staging environment was clean. No signs of rollback or cover-up, just clean code and silence. At 10:20 he walked in. Hoodie, headphones, same confidence. He nodded at me on the way to his desk. I nodded back. He did not mention the message thread. I did not either. It sat there in the team history, like an old coffee cup no one wants to throw out but no one wants to touch. Around noon I got pulled into a check-in meeting with Ms. Calloway. I thought maybe it would be about the thread. Maybe some formal debrief or thanks or a reminder about tone. But it was not. She just asked how my current workload was, if I felt supported, if I had the tools I needed. I said yes. She smiled and said I was a stabilizer, that I made the work easier for everyone around me. That she noticed. Then she nodded and dismissed me. It was not a promotion, not even a promise, but it was the first time in months I felt like someone had seen me. Not just my output. Me. The person behind the commits and documentation and quiet 7 p.m. bug fixes. I sat back at my desk and exhaled. That night I cooked dinner, like a person who had not been carrying weight for days. I slept for 6 hours straight. The next morning, Derek was early, sitting at his desk with his screen angled slightly away. He had that look people get when they know they almost stepped on a landmine and are trying to act normal. I did not engage, just got to work. Around 2, he stopped by my desk. Asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I hesitated, then said sure. We went to the place across the street. He paid. I did not argue. He started with small talk. Weather. Commute. Then said, "Hey, about that thing the other day. Thanks for flagging it the way you did. Could have been a mess." I nodded. He looked down at his coffee. Then added, "I should have caught it. Was moving too fast. Thought I had it handled. I let the silence sit. He said, "Just glad you did not go straight to Callaway. That would have looked bad." I said, "It was not about looks, it was about the system." He nodded slowly. Said, "Still, appreciate it." That was it. No confession, no apology. Just two guys pretending it was a near miss and not a moment that could have broken both of us. But I took it. Not because it fixed anything, but because it was more than I expected. Back at the office, things shifted. Subtle things. I got invited to sit in on a planning session I was not usually part of. One of the senior devs forwarded me an internal proposal and asked what I thought. The tone in meetings shifted. People paused when I spoke. Listened. Not dramatically. Just enough to notice. A week later, I got pulled into another meeting. This time with HR. It was framed as a, quote, leadership readiness review. Not a promotion. But a signal. A door cracking open. They asked how I handled stress. How I managed conflict. If I would be open to mentoring newer staff. I answered honestly. Said I was not interested in credit, just clarity. That I cared more about the system working than who got the spotlight. They smiled. Took notes. Said they would follow up. That night I sat on the couch with a bowl of soup and realized one did not feel guilt. Not anymore. Because I had not burned anyone. I had just told the truth out loud in a quiet room. And that truth had moved something. Not fast, not loud, but real. A few days later I saw Derek staying late. Headphones on. Focused. No shortcuts, no corner cutting. Just clean work. He did not see me pass by. But I saw the difference. Maybe temporary. Maybe not. But something had shifted. I did not want him to fail. That was never the point. I just wanted the system to catch what it missed. I just wanted the cracks to stop growing before someone fell through them. And now, for the first time, I thought maybe it had. Just a little. The month after the bug was fixed, passed quietly. Nobody mentioned it again. It never came up in meetings. It never showed up in the release notes. But I knew people had seen it. Not just the thread in the team chat. The way the story spread without being told. The way people started asking questions earlier. Testing a little deeper. Not assuming leadership was always right. One Friday, I got an email from Ms. Callaway asking if I had time for a quick end-of-week check-in. I walked into her office and sat down without knowing what to expect. She said the leadership track was opening again. A different structure. More mentorship-focused. Less title. More responsibility. She said my name had come up more than once. She asked if I was interested. I told her yes. Not because I wanted a bigger desk or a louder voice. Because I wanted to be the kind of person I needed when I was just starting out. The kind of person who says the quiet thing before it becomes the loud thing. She smiled. Said I had earned the trust of people who usually do not trust easily. Said that mattered more than performance metrics. Said that was how teams grow. When I walked out of her office, I did not feel victorious. I felt grounded. Like I had chosen something and stuck to it, even when it shook. That weekend, I called my brother. Told him I might be stepping into something new. He said, "Finally." I laughed. He said, "You have always been the kind of person who sees things other people miss. Just do not forget to say them out loud." That stuck with me. Because for a long time I thought being quiet meant being safe. Being invisible meant being good. That doing my job without making noise was the same as doing it well. But silence is a tool, and sometimes silence protects. But sometimes silence lets things rot. I still do not think I am a hero. I did not save a life. I did not expose corruption. I just saw something and chose to speak before it turned into something worse. A few weeks later, Derek stopped by my desk again. He had just come out of a product review and looked tired but calm. He said, "They are making me document every commit now. More review steps. Feels like a pain." I said, "You will get used to it." He nodded, then said, "Honestly, probably should have been doing it that way from the beginning." I nodded back. That was all. And that was enough. There was no resentment. No rivalry. Just two people who had made different choices and lived through the consequences. I left the office late that night. Not because I had to. Just because I wanted to finish something clean. When I shut down my machine and looked at the dark screen, I thought about how close I came to saying nothing. How easy it would have been to wait for someone else to notice. But sometimes the right thing is not the easy thing. Sometimes the right thing makes your stomach twist and your hands shake and your voice go dry. But you do it anyway. And then one day you look up and realize you are not afraid of your own reflection anymore. That is what honesty does. Not just to other people, but to you. It makes you choose who you are. And once you choose, you do not have to pretend anymore. You just keep showing up as that person, every day, until it feels like peace.